The first book of Moses, Bereshith, chapter 1, first creation by Elohim. In the former time periods, as a powerful sign of working, chief son and heir Elohim filled with choice things, behold, as a sign Shemayim, the place of the names, and behold, as a sign Aratz, the chief place of running. But observe how Aratz was unorganized and empty, and Sheshach rose up from the deep waters, went up to its face, but the Ruach Elohim, as a wall of protection, moved violently upon the surface of the waters. Elohim then declared, light he will exist, and light he will exist. And Elohim gazed upon that beautiful light, and Elohim made distinctive the light from the darkness. And to the light Elohim called out the name Ya'un, and to the darkness he called out the name Leah Laha. This was the close and the dawn of the first age.
The Ketub Abarayath, or the Paleo Hebrew, is a language over 5,000 years old. It chronicles a story branching forth from ancient time. His story, Yahweh. Walk into his story. Read the Paleo Hebrew scriptures.
Let's try this again. That was fun. You got to see me talking there for about a minute or two with my microphone off. Earlier this week, I received an interesting correspondence. Now, at any given week, I will, talk to any number of different people. Some people I know, some people I don't know. And this individual was writing me expressing that he and his wife had just discovered the unexpected cosmology through separate means. I think I'm a little confused by that point, which is fine, but I wasn't sure how it worked out that they both were watching my video separately, and at some point they decided to come together. But in the course of watching Tuck, they came to learn that the Torah is eternal and for all times, that it is in fact the very character of our Heavenly Father, which is amazing, right? And so he was writing me, and hopefully he doesn't mind this individual obviously know who he is. He was writing me and saying, like, what do I do next? Like, what do I do? And so here's my advice for everybody that is new on this journey. Maybe you've been in the faith your whole life. Maybe you've been a Christian your entire life, grew up, pick your denomination, and you were told, misinformation. You were told lies that that 2/3 of the Bible is not applicable to you, except for the parts we want to pick and say that they're good, and the rest are all mean and bad, and we don't follow them. So here's my advice. Exactly what we're doing tonight. I was actually really enjoying hearing from this individual, because it reminded me of several years ago when I came to this stunning realization that the Bible was indeed all of it was written to me and everybody, and for anyone who wants to follow the way of Yahuwah. So the first thing I did, aside from keeping the Sabbath day, was I turned to these Torah portions. Now, the amazing thing about these Torah portions is that generally there's going to be a few different calendars out there, but generally we're kind of all across this motionless plane. We're all looking at the same text at the same time, which is exciting because we're looking tonight at Genesis 25, chapter 25 through 28. There's a very good likelihood that there are hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people all over this earth that are this very weekend or this very Shabbat going over this very text. It's a way we could all learn together. But coming into the Torah is it can be a little bit unnerving at first and very anthropological. And when I say anthropological, I mean almost scary. And it needn't have to be. It's something that we take our time and realize that we're in this for the long haul, and we need to kind of stretch our legs out a little bit. And that's what's great about these Torah portions. It allows you every single week to in 1 year, guys, just 1 year. 1 year's nothing. You're going to make it all the way through the Bible, assuming you're committed. I should say all the way through the Torah, assuming you're committed to this. I didn't even start teaching these Torah portion sessions until I had done 5, I believe, consecutive Torah portions. And it's interesting that 2 years ago, we'll get into it tonight. It's a great text tonight. 2 years ago, I did my first Torah portions, and it was let me tell you, it was tough. I had already gone through it 5 times privately, but to actually teach it, it felt like you're going down this fast-paced current, this river, and you're trying not to get a leg cramp, and you're doggy paddling, and you're trying to get through it. And I made it through, and I was so tired at the end of it. I'm like, I'm taking a year off from these Torah portions. Not to mention, which is not the best reason for doing it, but not to mention they weren't really getting the best traction in terms of views. In fact, they probably bring down all the other videos as well, which is fine. But in the course of the last year, in which I covered some amazing material. But in the course of the last year, I had quite a few people coming and telling me how much of a help it was for them and how much they missed them. And I started realizing myself, wow, like we are really missing something by not doing these. So I just welcome, I know that there are people listening tonight who you are new to this journey. And there are people listening who are very mature in the faith. There are people who are new to this journey, and I welcome everybody. Let's make this journey together. A couple weeks ago or last week, I premiered this fundraiser for Pamela and Rebecca, and I remind everybody, I raised about $1,600, which is not really cutting it to fit their needs. And I remind everybody with this fundraiser that this is going directly to them. I'm going to split this, so $1,600 right here. I'm going to split between them. And these are the 2 ladies who are heading up the project of the Paleo scriptures, and they need our full support. And they need to be on salary. They need to be on payroll. I think we're all probably burnt out. It's been 2 years of these GoFundMes. I think everyone's getting kind of burnt out of it. Like, oh boy, here we go, another month of this again. So I will be proposing to you in probably late December, going into the Gregorian new quarter, or the last quarter, you could say, of the Hebrew calendar. I will be proposing a ministry outline in which I will be showing what I want. I'll give a whopping number of. It's going to freak some people out of what I want to raise in 1 year for these 2 ladies in 1 consecutive year. And that's going to be the goal. And we're going to see if we can do it. And, it's interesting that whenever I do videos on different subjects, recently I've invited on these different calendar keepers to give their position. And every time, I think every video, there are individuals who show up and they're like, they don't like the calendar. And so they're like, oh, you just need to be talking about loving Jesus. You just need to, I doubt they go around on YouTube to every video and say that. It's just, how it goes when they don't like, all of a sudden they're just like, Jesus is love people. Not when it comes to things they're passionate about, like the flat earth or things like that. But I digress. And they would say, you need to be just like, they obviously know nothing about this ministry. They'll be like, you need to be taking care of the widows and the orphans. And, you know, I read those comments. I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. Where are you when I actually ask for the support? They mysteriously disappeared. So I'm not here to talk to you about the Wild Man tonight, but I quietly introduced this book this week. I will be talking about it very soon. I'm very excited about it. And my latest release. And I want to, I want to show this here. So going back to the question of material for the newbies, or even the people who've been this very long time, this is what I'm excited about. One of the great things about supporting this ministry on Patreon is that every single dollar you give, whether it's $5, $15, $30, $50, $75, $100, $150, we give you that money back every month in a coupon certificate for the store, in which you can get the teas, Don's health products, you can get our books and just growing catalog. You can get this for yourself, you give it for your friends, and we have ministry material on here. And this is my absolute favorite, the Torah portion study guides. This is what we're going through tonight. You can see here Genesis through Deuteronomy. And what I do is I line up for your study needs, for comparing notes, the classic English Masoretic next to the Paleo, next to Pamela's Paleo scriptures, next to the Greek LXX, next to the Aramaic Targum. So you have 4 different traditions from 4 languages, of course, all written in English Targums, but coming from 4 unique texts all together, and you can compare, and people love these. So these are just great for your own study needs, for study groups. Highly recommend it. One more thing before we get into this tonight, I want to show you. Actually, I'll just show you on here. In the store, we are now opening up a used bookstore, and I'm excited about this. You can click right there, used books, and everything you see here, these are used books for sale. We have everything from Eli Marzulli to Zin Garcia's book, Sacred Word Publishing. We have all sorts of things. And this is one of the ways, too, that you can support this ministry. Everybody, I'm sure, in your house has old books that you have read that you like, that maybe you don't have a use for anymore. Like, what do I do with this? Well, instead of giving it to your thrift store, we are throwing out the giving the opportunity to send it to us, and we will resell it. And it's one of the ways that can help support this ministry. So we're going to be putting up, send us the book, we'll put it up, we'll sell it used, and that way we can, it could be, you know, the most unique truther books out there. There's a whole gauntlet of them that we ourselves do not publish, but we will sell. So I will put my email address should be under this video. I'm not going to put obviously where to send it. I don't want to put my address out there, but just email me and say, hey, I got some books to send. I'll send you where you can send them to, and we'll get them up in the store. All right, we are on week 6. Bereshith from the Paleo Hebrew, Genesis 25 through 28. And you can see there the prophets, Malachi 1 through 20, chapter 1 through chapter 2, verse 7, and the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 10, 21 to 38, for those of you who want to do that extra legwork, do your extra homework, I should say, study. This is a really fascinating passage, and I have to say it is one that still to this day perplexes me. The Torah is filled with morally ambiguous or situations that the patriarchs find themselves in when they have to choose between right and wrong. Sometimes they choose wrong, sometimes they choose right. And the amazing thing about the Torah is that Moses, he writes the law later on after these stories, after the bulk of the stories at least, in which you can refer to those, and then you could look back and find out if they made the right decision or not, which just goes to show you that the Torah does predate. It's hard for me to think that anybody could come to the conclusion that the Torah did not predate Mount Sinai. It had to have, because the 10 Commandments came down, and yet Cain murdered Abel, and there's adultery and murder, all sorts of terrible things that happened beforehand, which even with Sodom and Gomorrah, apparently they're innocent of it because they didn't have the law. You see what I'm saying? The Torah came down, the Torah was introduced at the same time, within the same generation of the 10 Commandments. But tonight we are going to be looking at Yitzhak, that would be Isaac, and his sons Yaakov and Esau. And a very interesting situation. You can see the illustration come up right here of deceit, trickery, wine, perhaps, things like that, in which, I have to say that all the commentary I've ever read on this, I've never been satisfied. In fact, I'm usually most disappointed at some of the Protestants, the modern Protestants commentary, where they're just kind of trying to make everything politically correct and have the Bible kind of conform to their modern day evangelical thinking. But this is a very interesting passage, how you have you have a prophecy of a people group, that this prophecy is fulfilled through trickery to some degree. And we will see tonight how much Yah really cares about oaths and what, keeping to our words, whether it's in deceit or not. Like, when you say something, you do it. So with no further ado, let's break into this tonight. Reading from the Paleo Hebrew. And these are the children of Yitzchak, son of Abraham. Abraham begat Yitzchak, and Yitzchak, son of Abraham, was 40 years old when he took for his woman Rivkah, or Rachel, or Rabucah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Armayeah, Phadamaram, and sister of Laban. It would say in English there, the Syrian here, the Aramea. And Yitzchak prayed to Yahweh, the ever-living, about his wife, for she was childless. And Yahweh answered him, for Rivkah, his woman, conceived, and the children struggled together in her midst. And she consequently said, "Why does this happen to me?" Of course, a question that they don't have her asking that question until the children are within her, but this would be a question she would have been asking for. I mean, let me see here. Yitzchak was 40 years old when he married her. We're about to find out how old he was when the children were born. They went a very, very long time in infertility, which would have been a sign at this time, even to this day, that Yah is not blessing their marriage. In fact, he says that those who keep his commands will not go childless. So it's interesting, though, that I could do a study tonight, and I didn't prepare one, in which I could show you all the cases throughout biblical history, including the extra biblical books, where it seems like a lot of people who are childless and really struggle actually have some amazing children, one of which would be the Virgin Mary. When she was born to her parents, Anna and Joachim, they were also childless, and they were judged by all their friends for it. For Rebekah, his woman, conceived, and the children struggled together in her midst, and she consequently said, "Why does this happen to me?" And she walked to inquire of Yahweh, the ever-living. Now, when it says she walked to inquire, that's kind of interesting. Moses just, she walked somewhere, right? I mean, did she walk down the block? Did she walk to her local church? Where did she go, right? Well, we know that she went to the very mountain of worship where Yitzchak had almost been, where he was the ascending sacrifice offering at an earlier time. She basically went to the school of Shem to pray. And Yahweh said to her, "Two nations are in your inmost part, and two people shall proceed from your womb." So whenever you see someone who is having fertility issues in the Bible, look out, because there's going to be some interesting children being born to them. "And one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger." So everything is backwards here. So already we're seeing this prophecy. Now, I guess there's multiple ways you can look at prophecy. There are self-fulfilling prophecies. It's popular amongst Greek tragedies. Is Yahweh just saying this is what will be, or this is his will? Because we'll see more tonight, but really we're not going to see the full consequence of what happens tonight. We're going to see it over the next few weeks, that whatever, I am a believer that even though this was ordained by Yah, to what degree, I'm not sure. I mean, could he have worked through Esau too? It says later on, we know that Esau he hated, right? And but whatever the case, I am currently of the position that Yaakov, it came back around to him again, that he too was deceived. What goes around comes around. That's a principle of the Torah. You can depend on it. When her days were full for her delivery, there were twins. So here we're going to see twins hate this. I mean, I have twin boys myself. I'm married to an identical twin, and twins. I know, like back in high school when I was dating my wife, and she would talk about it back then. She like, don't you ever bring up the evil twin. She hated the evil twin talk. And yet, this is kind of where it comes from, duality, right? We're going to see a lot of black and white duality between these two. And the firstborn came out covered with hair, and she called his name Esau or Esau, which you could see Pamela puts here literally means hairy. They called their baby Harry. Then after him came his brother with his hand holding the heel of Esau. So they called his name Yaakov. He will grab the heel. Yitzchak was 60 years old at the birth of them. I was talking to my group earlier. I gave them a whole long spiel about this book that I just came out with on the wild man, aka Sasquatch. And just stay tuned because it's going to be like a 3-week study. I'll be going through this, and I find it really fascinating. And I wanted to track down every newspaper article I could find on Sasquatch in the 1800s. Keep in mind, nobody called him that back then. He was just a wild man. And a very different picture of him emerges in how we perceive him today. And I think that that's really important. And one of the things I was pulling out from 19th century belief in the wild man is that there was a common perception that they're coming from the Woodwosen tradition of Germany in the Middle Ages and kind of giving him a new age Irving Washington feel. But time and again, they have this understanding that Sasquatch, as we know him, started out human at some point, and he became the Woodwosen, the wild man, which is a very interesting view because in ancient literature, we see something very different with the Nimrod types. And we're going to see that a little bit with Yaakov. He didn't start out a giant, but according to extra biblical texts, he became one. And it is, I mean, not to have anyone laugh at this, but I have to say in the back of my head, it's there. The thoughts are circulating. Was Yaakov, not Yaakov, I'm sorry, Esau, was he a Woodwosen, a wild man prototype? Because there's a lot of these prototypes in early literature, including the Epic of Gilgamesh. Well, let's keep reading. When the lad grew up, Esau was a man skillful in hunting, a man of the field. So they're going to compare him here with Nimrod. But Yaakov was an upright man, comparing with Abraham, a dweller in the tent. So Yitzchak loved Esau because he hunted with him. But Rivka loved Yaakov. Apparently, Mommy had time with her son in the kitchen while, Esau went out hunting with his daddy, with Pappy. Once when Yaakov was boiling pottage, so there he is, right? He had a cooking project, stay home and pull out the cookbooks with Mommy, and he was cooking all day while his brother was hunting. And you can imagine the contempt Esau has for him, right? He's coming on like, I'm a real man. You stay home with the girls. And so you could see here that what's about to happen, he's probably not even taking it that seriously. But as we find time and again, this should frighten everybody. Like, I don't mean boogeyman frighten you, but fear of Yah frighten you, that Yah takes us at our word. Like, let your yes be yes and your no be no. When you say something, you got to follow through with it. So Esau comes home weary from the hunt. He's looking down probably contemptuously on his effeminate brother. I say that kind of loosely. I'm sure he was a very nice man, but you know what I mean. In this culture, he's staying home with Mommy to cook. And Esau said to Yaakov, feed me now with that red pottage, for I am exhausted. And therefore they called his name Red Soup, or you could see Adam there for red, right? Adawam. But Yaakov replied, sell me your bakar today. Like, he straight up just goes straight to your, like, it's like, sell me your birthright. Like, that's, I mean, I could think of a lot of things that, a bowl of soup is worth, and even trying to barter up. But like, this is like going extreme. This is like having a candy bar and be like, oh, you want the candy bar? Give me your house and your jumbo jet, something like that. And it's actually shocking in some ways. that Esau went through with it, but at the same time, it's not, because as we're going to see, Esau doesn't. He thinks nothing of Yitzhak at all. He doesn't see him as an authority. He doesn't see him as anybody. He could just say whatever he wants to him. It's fine. So Esau answered, "Now I am going to die. What is a bakar to me?" And so Yaakov said, "Swear to me now at once." And he swore to him and sold his bakar, or his rights as firstborn, to Yaakov. Remember that, to all the brothers out there. Take this seriously. Then Yaakov gave to Esau bread and lentil pottage, and he ate and drank and rose up and went. So now you know what the price for someone's soul is, don't you? I'm sure Satan gets a lot of people for just a little bit more than that, if even less. Thus Esau trampled underfoot his bakar. So it says right there that he's responsible, like he thought so little of it. Well, we get a little bit of a better understanding of why he thought so little of it. It ultimately comes down to a belief system, and we read this in the Jonathan Targum, Genesis 25. These are the generations of Yitzhak bar Abraham. And because the appearance of Yitzhak resembled the appearance of Abraham, the sons of men said, "In truth, Abraham begot Yitzhak." Isn't that interesting? I already said to you that Yitzhak is another, in the game of duality, he is another Abraham prototype, and Esau is a Nimrod prototype. And of course, they're totally contrasted too, as we will see. Compared. Esau and Nimrod are compared to each other a little later on. And Yitzhak was the son of 40 years when he took Rivkah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Edomite, who was of Padam Aram, the sister of Laban, the Edomite, unto him for a woman. And Yitzhak went to the mountain of worship, the place where his father had bound him. And Yitzhak in his prayer turned the attention of the Holy One, blessed be he, from that which he had decreed concerning him who had been childless. And he was enlarged, and Rivkah, his woman, was with child. So we see that in the text we just read, that it's Rivkah who takes this journey. We don't know really who is motivated here, but in this here, it's Yitzhak who actually, is the covering over Rivkah, her protector. He's the one that prays for this. They give him direct responsibility here. Skipping ahead, and the lads grew, and Esau was a man of idleness to catch birds and beasts, a man going forth into the fields to kill lives, as Nimrod had killed. Now notice here, it doesn't necessarily just say animal. It's a little ambiguous what lives are. Nimrod was a hunter of mighty creatures. We don't all know what Esau was killing other than animals. It could have been a giant slayer too. It appears that he became a mighty man himself, as Nimrod had killed, and Enoch his son. But Yaakov was a man peaceful in his words, a minister of the instruction house of Eber, seeking instruction before Yahweh. So again, Yaakov, he like desires to go off to boarding school. Mommy and daddy want to pay for both of them. It actually gets worse. We're going to see next week that Rivkah actually had wives set up for the two of them amongst her relatives back with Laban. And Esau, of course, is not interested in that either. He's not interested in anything. He just wants to go off and hunt and kill. And, his father is thrilled with that. But his father is also blind, as we shall see. Nevertheless, Yitzhak, he is just like his father. His grandfather, Abraham, as a young man, he went off to the school of Shem. Now we're seeing Eber teaching Yitzhak. And Yitzhak loved Esau. I'm getting all the names confused tonight. Now we see Yaakov being taught, And Yitzhak loved Esau, for words of deceit were in his mouth. But Rivkah loved Yaakov. On the day that Abraham died, Yaakov dressed pottage of lentils. So now we're getting a little bit additional information about this. And they're probably connected. When you go to a funeral, a lot of crazy things are said, and a lot of truth comes out about how people feel about the search of someone who died. People start analyzing their own lives, their own spiritual lives, their belief in the afterlife. And so I can't help but think both of them, this idea of going to the birthright probably had some sort of connection with Abraham dying. I think they both knew about it. They're probably both mourning. And, you know, and Yaakov is thinking, what am I going to get out of this, right? In a good way, right? You know, what is my inheritance? And he was going to comfort his father. So Esau came from the wilderness exhausted, for in that day he had committed 5 transgressions. Now keep in mind, a transgression, a sin is a transgression of the Torah. He had worshiped with strange worship, probably some god, some idol, right? He had shed innocent blood, so he murdered someone. So these aren't just animals he's killing. He had gone unto a betrothed damsel. By this text, I'm not sure if he killed the man who was betrothed to this woman. Not really sure about that, but nevertheless, this woman was as good as married, being betrothed. So he committed adultery. He had denied the life of the world to come and had despised the birthright. Of course, those two go hand in hand. So we see down here, and Esau said, behold, I'm going to die, and in another world I shall have no life. And what then to me is the birthright, or the portion in the world of which thou speakest? Well, what is that familiar? Where have you heard that before? Well, if you've read the Jonathan Targum in Genesis chapter 4, we read this between Cain and Abel. So Cain and Abel are specifically being contrasted with Yaakov and Esau here. In fact, throughout their entire lives. I think the difference is that we have nothing that says that Seth and Cain were ever brought together later in life. And Cain said to Abel, his brother, come and let us two go forth into the field. And it was that when they had gone forth into the field, Cain answered and said to Abel, his brother, I perceive that the world was created in goodness, but it is not governed or conducted according to the fruits of good works. So he's basically, you know, he's not liking who Yahweh is. He believes that he is unfair to him. He's doing the martyrdom complex here. For there is respect of persons in judgment. Therefore it is that thy offering was accepted, and mine not accepted with goodwill. And Abel answered and said to Cain, in goodness was the world created. So at least they agree on this point. And according to the fruit of good works, it is governed. And there is no respect of persons in judgment. But because the fruits of my works were better than thine, my oblation before thine had been accepted with goodwill. This is how Cain responds. There is neither judgment nor judge, nor another world, nor will good reward be given to the righteous, nor vengeance be taken of the wicked. So you see like the same words coming out of Esau's mouth in the Targum when it's his time to speak, as you see out of Cain. And what's interesting, of course, is that, as you guys know, Cain married. He didn't marry Abel. He murdered Abel, and Esau attempted the same, or at least desired to. There's a lot of tension hanging in the balance. All right, let's jump over to Yasher and see what it says in the same passage. And in the 59th year of the life of Yitzchak, the son of Abraham, Rabakuha, his woman, was still barren in those days. As you can see, we're using the Paleo names here. We do have a Paleo, like, names corrected version of Yasher. And Rabakuha said unto Yitzchak, truly I have heard, my Adonuya, that your mother Sharaha was barren in her days, until my Yahuwah Abraham, your father, prayed for her, and she conceived by him. Oh yeah, there's another one. I totally forgot about her. I already forgot about her. There was another barren woman who had an interesting child. Now therefore stand up, pray you also to Allahayam, and he will hear your prayer and remember us through his mercies. And Yitzchak answered his woman, Rabakuha, saying, Abraham has already prayed for me to Allahayam to multiply his seed. Now, therefore, this barrenness must proceed to us from you. Oh, that's just what every woman, I'm sure, wants to to hear. And the thing is my wife and I went through infertility for years. It was tough. It was not easy at all. And it's tough owning up to the possibility of there's that exchange of who is more responsible for not being able to produce on your end, come through with your end of the deal. And Rabbi Kuha said unto him, but arise now you also and pray that Yahuwah may hear your prayer and grant me children. And Yitzchak hearkened to the words of his woman. And Yitzchak and his woman rose up and went to the land of Moriah to pray there and to seek Yahuwah. And when they had reached that place, Yitzchak stood up and prayed to Yahuwah on account of his woman because she was barren. So I had said earlier, according to Genesis, you get this account that Rivka is the one that starts on this journey. But then when you read the Targum, it's like, well, it's Yitzchak. But now in Jasher, it's like, no, Rivka is she's the one that's really trying to push almost the spirituality here. This is an interesting thing, don't you think? Because Yitzchak is an amazing individual who was a type of ascending sacrifice, is the reason why he never left the land. And yet he seems to be, in some regards, a very spiritually blinded person. He has Yahuwah as his Elohim. He's Abraham's son. Abraham was not a spiritually blinded person, but Yitzchak doesn't seem to get it a lot of times. And you have to wonder in an account like this, was he the one responsible for infertility? Maybe she was praying on her end and her womb was fine. Maybe it was on his end. I'm just speculating at this point. It wasn't until he prayed for it. And Yitzchak said, O Yahuwah Elohim of heaven and earth, whose goodness and mercies fill the earth, you who did take my father from his father's house and from his birthplace, and did bring him up into this land, and did say unto him, to your seed will I give the land. And you did promise him and did declare unto him, I will multiply your seed as the stars of heaven and as the sand of the sea. Now may your words be verified, which you did speak unto my father. For you are Yahuwah, our Elohim. Our eyes are toward you to give us seed of men, as you did promise us. For you are Yahuwah, our Elohim, and our eyes are directed toward you only. And Yahuwah heard the prayer of Yitzchak, the son of Abraham, and Yahuwah was entreated of him, and Rabbi Kuha, his woman, conceived. And about 7 months after the children struggled together within her, and it pained her greatly that she was wearied on account of them. And she said to all the women who were then in the land, did such a thing happen to you as it has to me? And they said unto her, no, probably on both accounts. They've never had children fight like this in the womb. But they obviously probably didn't have this infertility issue. Now, I will say this, and I know my sons are listening. I tell them, my wife and I tell them the story all the time. Now, with our daughter, Rivka, we did not have any ultrasounds whatsoever. We didn't know the sex of the child until she was born. We never even entered a doctor's office. We did everything as naturally as possible, even bringing a Hebrew midwife over. But with our sons, we took them in, we saw the ultrasounds, and I kid you not, they were just like hardly anything has changed. They were just beating each other up the whole time, just kicking, punching. Every time I'm just like trying to yell at them as a father, the ultrasound, stop that, go to your corners. But, you can't give them time out in the womb. And she said unto them, why am I alone in this amongst all the women that were upon the earth? And she went to the land of Moriah to seek Yahuwah on account of this. And she went to Shem and Eber, his son, to make inquiries of them in this matter. And that they should seek Yahuwah in this thing respecting her. Notice in the Aramaic Targum, it doesn't mention Shem at this point. And I'll bring this up time and again. I believe Shem was an ascended master, if you want to call him that. He was a immortal. He had whatever. He's living in paradise, just like Enoch. And I think that there was some sort of portal way of communicating with him, something which Nimrod tried to build his own portal to heaven, but you notice he never went to the mountain of worship. He could have gone there and done it the right way, right? And she also asked Abraham to seek and inquire of Yahuwah about all that had befallen her. And they all inquired of Yahuwah concerning this matter. And they brought her word from Yahuwah and told her, two children are in your womb, and two nations shall rise from them. And one nation shall be stronger than the other, and the greater shall serve the younger. And when her days to be delivered were completed, she knelt down, and behold, there were twins in her womb, as Yahuwah had spoken to her. It's kind of funny when she goes to Abraham, has him pray for her. And Abraham's probably thinking, like, here we go again. We went through this with my wife, Sharaha. And the first came out red all over like a hairy garment. And all the people of the land called his name Esau, Asha, saying that this one was made complete from the womb. And after that came his brother, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel before they called his name Yaakov. So why is Yaakov grabbing his heel? I believe it is because Esau in the womb is trying to inadvertently, or some sort of spiritual situation is going on here where he is trying to fulfill or reverse engineer the Genesis 3 prophecy, and that he is trying to crush Yaakov's head versus, crushing the head of the serpent. And I personally believe that Yaakov is grabbing his heel almost like in a defense manner. And Yitzchak, the son of Abraham, was 60 years old when he begot them. So now we know 20 years have gone by since the time he married Rivka. Rivka was 10 years old, so now she's 30 at this point, which is almost an old woman at this time for a woman trying to bear children. And the boys grew up to their 15th year, and they came amongst the society men. Esau was a designing and deceitful man and an expert hunter in the field. And Yaakov was a man perfect and wise, dwelling in tents, feeding flocks, and learning the instructions of Yahuwah and the commands of his father and mother. There's a interesting play there on the law. And Yitzchak and the children of his household dwelt with his father Abraham in the land of Canaan, as Elohim had commanded them. And Ishmael, the son of Abraham, went with his children and all belonging to them, and they returned there to the land of Chahwat-Yalaha, and they dwelt there. And all the children of Abraham's concubines went to dwell in the land of the east. And Abraham had sent them away from his son and had given them presents, and they went away. And Abraham gave all that he had to his son Yitzchak, and he also gave him all his treasures. And he commanded him, saying, so again, this is kind of what is going through when I told you there was a connection there with the inheritance, right? I think both sons were thinking about this. They're seeing this. Abraham has given his inheritance away, and he's dying now. And he also gave him all his treasures, and he commanded him, saying, do you not know and understand Yahuwah is Elohim in heaven and in earth, and there is no other beside him? And it was he who took me from my father's house and from my birthplace and gave me all the delights upon earth, who delivered me from the counsel of the wicked, for in him did I trust. And he brought me to this place, and he delivered me from Eor Kashadayam, and he said unto me, to your seed will I give all these lands, and they shall inherit them when they keep my commandments, my statutes, and my judgments that I have commanded you, and which I shall command them. Did you notice, though, when Esau was talking, that he seemed to be talking about the spiritual heritage of the land in the same way that we later see in Hebrews, when it says that Abraham was looking for a land, or a city in a land, so to speak, that he did not encounter on his journeys. And I think that that's, of course, another blessed land reference right there. For lack of time, I'm going to skip some of this. I'm going to just jump to chapter 27. And Esau at that time, after the death of Abraham, frequently went in the field to hunt. And Nimrod, or Namarad, king of Babel, the same was Amraphel. So you can see right there that they're actually in this text naming him a different name, Amraphel. And I've stated that multiple times in the past, that I really question whether anyone really called him Nimrod, that he went by other names. And we see in the Bible, like Moses had a dozen names. A lot of people, Yaakov was also Yasharel, right? They had multiple names. So I think that he is a historical king that can be pinpointed. We're not going to find probably Nimrod. Who knows? He might dig up something in the desert that talks about Nimrod. But Nimrod, king of Babel, the same as Amraphel, also frequently went with his mighty men to hunt in the field and to walk about with his men in the cool of the day. So this is like straight up like a scene of like a wild man. I'm telling you right now, the way Nimrod gets taken out like a punk. He too is kind of a mighty man, and he gets schooled by a younger generation mighty man. And Nimrod was observing Esau all the days, for a jealousy was formed in the heart of Nimrod against Esau all the days. And on a certain day, Esau went in the field to hunt, and he found Nimrod walking in the wilderness with his 2 men. And all his mighty men and his people were with him in the wilderness. But they removed at a distance from him, and they went from him in different directions to hunt. And Esau concealed himself for Nimrod, and he lurked for him in the wilderness. And Nimrod and his men that were with him did not know him. And Nimrod and his men frequently walked about in the field at the cool of the day, and to know where his men were hunting in the field. And Nimrod and 2 of his men that were with him came to the place where they were, when Esau started suddenly from his lurking place and drew his sword and hastened and ran to Nimrod and cut off his head. And Esau fought a desperate fight with the 2 men that were with Nimrod. And when they called out to him, Esau turned to them and smote them to death with his sword. And all the mighty men of Nimrod who had left him to go to the wilderness heard the cry at a distance, and they knew the voices of those 2 men, and they ran to know the cause of it, when they found their king and the 2 men that were with him lying dead in the wilderness. What do you think of these other mighty men? Do you think these are giants too? He might have had a whole entourage of them. When Esau saw the mighty men of Nimrod coming at a distance, he fled and thereby escaped. And Esau took the valuable garments of Nimrod, which Nimrod's father had bequeathed to Nimrod, and with which Nimrod prevailed over the whole land, and he ran and concealed them in his house. These garments, in case you're curious, are the same garments that Adam and Eve wore, that they were clothed in when they transgressed, and that is the skin of the serpent that he shed. That was then prophesied that the serpent would shed every 7 years, which is a prophetic, I believe. It's prophetic for, I think, every 7,000 years of, Satan being thrown into the abyss type of thing. And Esau took these garments and ran into the city on account of Nimrod's men, and he came into his father's house, wearied and exhausted from fight, and he was ready to die through grief when he approached his brother Yaakov and sat before him. And he said unto his brother Yaakov, Behold, I shall die this day, and wherefore then do I want the birthright? Now again, isn't it interesting that he's wearing the clothing of the serpent when he's talking like this too? And Yaakov acted, I'm assuming he's wearing the clothing. Maybe he just has it in his purse or something. I don't really know. And Yaakov acted wisely with Esau in this matter. And Esau sold his birthright to Yaakov, for it was so brought about by Yahuwah. And Esau's portion in the cave of the field of Mechpah, which Abraham had bought from the children of Hath for the possession of a burial ground, Esau also sold to Yaakov. And Yaakov bought all this from his brother Esau for value given, for soup and bread. And Yaakov wrote the whole of this in a book, and he testified the same with witnesses, and he sealed it, and the book remained in the hands of Yaakov. It's like, can you imagine that? Like, if I'm understanding this right, he's like, Esau just really wants this soup, and he's like, and he's just holding it, and he kind of pushes away, and he slides the book out. He's like, yeah, just can you sign right here and right here? And Esau's like, what's this? It's like, well, you said you give me your. It's like, well, fine. He just signs it, and it's like, this page, you forgot this over here. And he's like, all right, and he signs it, and then he slides the soup over. And when Nimrod, the son of Cush, died, his men lifted him up and brought him in consternation and buried him in his city. And all the days that Nimrod lived were 215 years, and he died. And the days that Nimrod reigned upon the people of the land were 185 years. And Nimrod died by the sword of Esau in shame and contempt, and the seed of Abraham caused his death, as he had seen in his dream. And at the death of Nimrod, his kingdom became divided into many divisions, and all those parts that Nimrod reigned over were restored to the respective kings of the land, who recovered them after the death of Nimrod. And all the people of the house of Nimrod were for a long time enslaved to all the other kings of the land. That comes from Yashar 26 through 27. It's kind of it's interesting because they specifically credit Esau here to bringing the kingdom of Nimrod to an end. It wasn't Abraham that brought it to an end necessarily. It was Esau. Well, these same accounts I'll be showing you tonight accredit Esau with also starting Rome, the people of Rome. So there was a whole regime change here going from Nimrod to Rome, which represents the end of the world. When Rome fell was the end of the world. So this is the Edomite prophecy right here. We read it now. I'm going to go through this really quickly for lack of time. I should really refresh and make a whole video on this. You see in Numbers 20, we see that Edom, this is the Edomites, or you see they're Edomia, which are these are the children of Esau specifically. They do not, Moses, writes him a letter and he's like, hey, look, or send some scouts out or whatever. He's like, look, we just want to walk through on your highway. That's all we want to do. And the Edomites are like, we know you're related to us. We do not want you coming back into the land that, you have a right to. You are not coming through our roads. This is what First Ezra says. You also have vowed to build up the temple which the Edomites burned when Yehuda was made desolate by the Chazdim. So we know that the Edomites were cheering on when the temple was burned. They were helping it. They wanted to destroy. They always envied the spiritual inheritance of Yasharel. Second Ezra chapter 6 says this. I'm just skimming through this so quickly for you guys tonight. For Esau is the end of the world, and Yaakov is the beginning of it that follows. Now, this is fascinating on 2 points. One is that I'm going to be showing you tonight that what Esau attempted to do with Yitzhak by, I believe, trying to crush his head, the Edomites, his descendants, did it actually with Messiah. Now, it was in doing so that Messiah resurrected and he stepped on the head of the serpent. He fulfilled that prophecy. So on one hand, you have Esau being the end there of that prophecy with Messiah, and Messiah beginning anew, through Israel, right? The same thing happened with Rome in the 500s. When Rome fell, Esau falls, and on the other end of it, the millennial kingdom, Israel springs forward. So you can see how this prophecy worked in 2 ways. We also see this is getting to Talmudic literature, but in Esther Rabbah, chapter 3, it says, 2 orphans were left to Esau, namely Remus and Romulus. So if you guys know the story of there were 7 original kings of Rome, and then of course there were 7 mainly emperors, but there were 7 original kings that started with Remus and Romulus. They were very much like a Cain and Abel situation. One of them killed the other, but they were apparently raised by a wolf, according to mythology. But here it's stating that it's actually that wolf was Esau. That they're kind of given more of an esoteric description here and saying, yeah, I know you're seeing the artwork of the wolf, but if I'm understanding this right, they're like, no, Esau raised these 2. So this is the paradigm shift. Esau killed Nimrod, and then he began to raise. Nimrod was always planting kings and usurping thrones. Well, Esau is now doing the same thing and overturning the overall kingdom of Nimrod by planting Rome. Deuteronomy Rabbah, so the rabbinical commentary in Deuteronomy says this: I know you can defeat Edom, but I wish to subdue my world through them, Rome. So this is Yahweh speaking to Moses when they're not allowing him to pass through. And he says, I need Rome for future generations until the final redemption. Moshe, your teacher, already wished to engage the Edomites in battle, but I said no to him. This is what Genesis Rabbah chapter 63 says. 2 nations, Goyim, are in your womb. 2 proud Goyim nations are in your womb. This one is proud of his world, and that one is proud of his world. This one is proud of his kingdom, and that one is proud of his kingdom. Two prides of their nations are in your womb, Hadrian among the Gentiles, Solomon amongst the Israelites. It's interesting there that they actually accredit Hadrian as a kind of an Esau incarnate. And everything we know about Hadrian, that dude was gayer than gay, just like a horrific Caesar. Give you an example of what. Now, I've been to Hadrian's Wall. That's what most people know him for. What a lot of people don't know is that he was so anti-Christ. He hated Yahshua so much, and the idea that he was resurrected, that he went to this is one of the good pieces of evidence that I believe that we can say that the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is totally millennial kingdom, more maybe human tradition, but evidence nonetheless, that is the actual site of where Messiah resurrected, and not the garden tomb, which is very picturesque, but it's not necessarily his tomb. Is that Hadrian? We have a lot of archaeology, a lot of text, all going back to Hadrian, and Hadrian actually put, I think it was the Temple of Venus, directly above. He rebuilt Jerusalem, gave it a new name. We have all the archaeological data on that as well. When you go to Jerusalem, but he was so sick of the Christian pilgrims, and he didn't just run the Jews out; he wanted them run out too. So he built the Temple of Venus there, and so we have it all. We have that record. You could actually still see the results of that to that day. So he was very much an Edom. Esau character, not just to the Jews, but to Christianity as well. Let's just jump ahead. Now, I will say, going through this, that you can see I'm skipping all this research. I used to have the belief. Several years ago, I would have told you that the Edomite prophecy, we see it all through the minor prophets and the major prophets, this idea that Edom would come in and take over Israel, and they would be a false people masquerading as the Jews, and that this would bring about the wrath of Yahweh. Now, naturally, at that time, I was struggling with, kind of some preterist thoughts, but I was still raised in the school of end times eschatology or futurist eschatology, in which you just take everything in the Bible and you say, well, it's future tense. And I would say, well, that's proof that the modern Ashkenazi Jews are really Edom. Now, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I can't prove that. I don't really talk about that much, because whoever they are is a separate issue. It could be repeated prophecy, but I see this as completely fulfilled in the first century. And I'm going to show you, and just really quickly here, just give you a few pieces of evidence. Skipping, as you can see, Obadiah, Ezekiel, they all talk about the Edom prophecy. Here's Jeremiah. There's more from Deuteronomy, Isaiah, and Amos. All right. This is a little clip here from Wikipedia, and it's talking about the Herodian dynasty. And you could look at this opening paragraph. It says that he was a royal dynasty of the Edomites. So it's saying that Herod was an Edomite. All right. So right there, we know that the Herodian kingdom, Herod himself was Esau incarnate. Starting the Herodian dynasty began with Herod the Great, who assumed the throne of Judea. And we see this from Josephus in Antiquities 13:9. A man named Hyrcanus took also Dora and Marissa, cities of Idumea, these are the Edomites, and subdued all the Edomites and permitted them to stay in that country if they would circumcise their genitals and make use of the laws of the Jews. And they were so desirous of living in that country of their forefathers that they submitted to the use of circumcision and the rest of the Jewish ways of living, at which time, therefore, this befell them, that they were hereafter no other than Jews. Not only did they become Jews, though, there's a sleight of hand that's happening here, and Josephus is admitting to it, that the so-called Jews of the first century were already the Edomites. They were already the imposters. So we have this big conspiracy theory about the imposters today. And again, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But they were imposters in the first century. And this is what Yahshua says in the Gospel of John. He says, to these temple leaders who were aligned with Herod. He says, "You're the sons of Hasatan, your father. Therefore, you take pleasure in doing the will of your father. He was a murderer at the beginning and did not abide in the truth." Now, I've already shown you the connections tonight where Esau is repeating Cain's words. Cain was a son of Satan, not just spiritually, I believe literally a son of Satan. And one thing I wish I could show you tonight, I have the research in front of me, just not in this document, is like in the Gospel of Nicodemus, where when these very Jews who murdered Messiah, they are fulfilling Esau's desire. I think it's Nicodemus who looks to them and says, "Well, that's interesting because you are actually repeating the very words of Goliath right now." Like they were quoting Goliath. Goliath was another, a Nephilim mighty man, just like Esau was, or became. This is what we read in the Gospel of Peter. "But of the Yahudim, none washed his hands." So this is actually verse 1 of the surviving document of Gospel of Peter, which I absolutely love. I actually wrote like a 300-page line-for-line commentary on this book. I was the first to ever do so, I believe, in modern history, recorded history. So obviously Pontius Pilate had just washed his hands here. And when he washed his hands, keep in mind, he's now declaring the innocence of Messiah. He's like, maybe Pilate had, beat him. He's like, "Look, I beat him. He didn't deserve that. I'm washing my hands now." What happened when he washes his hands? He doesn't crucify him, guys. I believe Pilate was innocent. Yes, he did order his men to beat them at one point. The Jews do it worse. The Jews are like, "No, we're not washing our hands. You don't have to convict him of being guilty. We say he's guilty," right? So neither Herod nor one of his judges, they didn't wash their hands. So here it's pointing the fingers at Herod. And since they did not desire to wash, Pilate stood up. And then Herod the king commanded that Adonai be taken, saying to them, "What things I commanded you to do to him, do." So now we see here that it's Herod is personally, the Edomite is personally responsible for the killing of Messiah. It's interesting that I just came from Europe, went into a lot of cathedrals, a lot of museums, and every single time, I need to build a case for this, of the 100 things I need to do. I have a lot of documentation on this. Every time there was a picture of the crucifixion, I took careful note of it, documented it. I shouldn't say every time, but I documented a lot of them. And I'm not convinced that they were depicting the Romans as actually crucifying him. Time and again, they're showing that the Jews were the ones who actually crucified him. And these would be the Edomites. This is what it says in Ascension of Yashayahu. And when he, Mashiach, had grown up, he worked great signs and wonders in the land of Yasharel and Jerusalem. And after this, the adversary envied him and roused the children of Yasharel against him, not knowing who he was. And they delivered him, Mashiach, to the king and crucified him. This king is not speaking in Pontius Pilate. Okay, this king is speaking specifically of Herod. Now, in my, I'm not going through the whole, was Herod a king or not discussion tonight. I have a whole thing covered on that. But I concluded that it is appropriate calling him a king. It's specifically saying Herod here, that he was responsible. And he descended to the angel of Sheol. In Jerusalem, indeed, I saw him being crucified on a tree. That's the ascension of Yashayahu. All right, let's continue with chapter 26 of our study tonight. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I hope you're enjoying this. Afterwards, there was a famine in the land, beside the famine which was in the days of Abraham. So Yitzchak went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, or the Phalashathuyam of Gararaha. It's happening all over again. Remember what happened when Abraham went to Abimelech? I guess like father, like son, on both counts, because this is now the son of Abimelech. Then Yahuwah appeared to him in a vision and said, "Descend not to Mitzrayim, dwell in the land that I promised you, remain in this land, and I will be with you and will barak you, for to you and your race I will give the whole of this country as a dwelling. And I will complete the oath which I swore to your father Abraham, and I will increase your race like the stars of the sky, and I will give to your race the whole of this country for a home, And I will barakaha all the nations of Ha'aratz through your heir in accordance with what I promised to Abraham, according to my words, if you will carefully keep my commandments and statutes and laws. Now, keep in mind, too, that, I've already been through the study on how I believe Yitzhak was conceived. I'm not talking about Yaakov and Esau at this point, how there was a spiritual conception. And he's talking here about a spiritual people. So the people that are blessed under Yasharel, again, it's not talking, as you guys know, I think all of my viewers probably understand this, is not talking about 1948 Israel at this point or at any point in the Bible. So Yitzhak remained in Geraraha. When the men of the place asked about his woman, he replied, she is my sister, for he feared to say my woman, lest the men of the place should murder him for Rabakuha, for she was beautiful to look on. After he had resided a considerable time, it happened that Abimelech, king of the Philistines, was looking out of his window when he saw Yitzhak sporting with his wife, Rabakuha. I guess that flirting, I assume, publicly. In a way that, that sounds a little provocative to me. Anyone who's been to the Middle East knows that you don't sport with your wife in public, even if she is your wife. Abimelech therefore summoned Yitzhak, and he declared, now she is your woman? Then why did you say to me, she is my sister? And Yitzhak answered, because I said to myself, I fear they will kill me because of her. Why did you do so to us? Abimelech said, perhaps one of the people might have lain with your woman, and you would have brought sin upon us. You got to love Abimelech there, that he's got a righteous anger there. He's like, he knows that adultery is super wrong. Even as a king, he could have been like, hey, as king, I can have what woman I want, right? Because there were kings like that back then. Abimelech therefore commanded to all his people, saying, whoever touches this man, he shall surely die. This is where I find it starts getting really interesting to my story. Yitzhak, however, removed from that country, and he arrived at Bashan. Pamela puts Bashan here, and I was looking at different translations, and you can see in the KJV over there, it doesn't say Bashan. So apparently this is embedded in the language. I didn't ask her about that, but it's interesting. He's going to Bashan, like Og of Bashan. He and his possessions. Some people have argued that Bashan is actually a spiritual place. We might be seeing another kind of spiritual dimension at play here, which makes the war over the wells all that more interesting, if true. And Yahuwah, the ever-living, prospered him. Thus the man traveled about and increased until he was very great. He also had flocks of sheep and herds of cattle and many servants. And the Philistines were envious of him. On this account, the Philistines filled with earth all the wells that servants of his father Abraham had dug in his days. Abimelech also said to Yitzhak, go from among us, for you are much stronger than we. And Yitzhak went from there and encamped by the river Gerar and remained there. Yitzhak also settled and cleared out the wells of water which were dug in the time of his father Abraham. So they're burying the wells, and he's going around and digging them up. And I want you to think about this from a spiritual perspective. I was going to talk about, go into like the millennial kingdom and the little season and water and all that. I'm not going to do that tonight. I want to look at it from some other perspectives. And he called them by the names they were called in the days of his father. The servants of Yitzhak also dug in the valley and discovered there a spring of living water. But the shepherds of Gerar contended with the shepherds of Yitzhak and said, the water is ours. So he called the name of the well Strife, because they disputed with them. Isn't it amazing? They didn't even dig it. They weren't going to dig it. They're going around burying them, but they're like, hey, I want what you have. It's just that kind of that Nimrod kind of spirit of not wanting to go, to have them the right way, but going and just taking the inheritance for themselves. He therefore dug another well, and they contended about that also. So he called his name Contention. He then removed from there and dug another well, and they did not fight over it. So he called its name Room Enough. For he said, now, Yahuwah, you have given us room and made us fruitful in the land. Afterwards, he arose from there and went to the well of the vision. So he goes to the well of the vision, and lo and behold, he has a vision. And Yahuwah, the ever-living, appeared to him that night and said, I am the Alahiah of your father Abraham. Fear not, for I am with you, and will barak you and increase your race because of my servant Abraham. Then he built an altar at the place and called on the name of Yahuwah, the ever-living, and he pitched his tent there. The servants of Yitzchak dug a well, but Abimelech went to him from Gerar with his chief herdsmen and Phaekal, the general of his army. Yitzchak therefore asked him, why have you come to me when you are my enemies and have driven me from among you? And they replied, we are terribly afraid because Allahayam is with you. So we would say, let there now be an understanding between us and you, and let a treaty be made with you so that you will not do wrong to us if we do not touch you. And as we have certainly done good to you and sent you away in peace. You are now the Baruch of Yahuwah, the ever-living. He therefore made them a feast, and they ate and drank and rose up in the morning, and when they swore to his brother. Then Yitzchak sent them away, and they went from him in peace. And the same day also the servants of Yitzchak came and informed him about the well which they had dug, and they said, we have found water. He therefore called it Satisfaction. Consequently, the name of the village by that well is called Satisfaction to this day. Now, for the rest of this chapter is going into a quick history of Esau and his wives. When Esau was 40 years old, he took as a woman Judith in the English, or Yahwadeah, the daughter of Bariah, and Bashemath, the daughter of Elon the Chathuiah. But they were a bitter ruach to Yitzchak and Rabakuha. Now, in the English, he marries a woman named Judith, all right, the feminine of Jude or Judah. So that is interesting that he has a nephew later on named Judah or Yehuda. So that's kind of interesting right there. But as you can see, that Esau is a constant disappointment to his father and his parents, the fact that he grieves them spiritually in just making really bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. So here's what I wanted to cover tonight about the wills. I was trying to think, like, you look at like the ways of Yah, and he wants us to say eat healthy, right? He wants us to eat organically. He doesn't want cross pollination of seeds and that sort of stuff. He doesn't want the hybrids, all that. And what happens with our controllers? They put chemtrails over us. They poison us, right? I mean, we're being poisoned on all fronts, and everything from the Wi-Fi, just everything, right? Like they can't seem to get it right. And I don't know if they're purposely doing it. Most of you would say they are. I kind of just think it's just the character of men who do not conform to righteousness. Like they can't help themselves. It's this very idea of Yitzchak going around and digging these wells for the betterment of humanity, and they're just they hate it and they have to bury it, right? So one of the things about liberal culture is that they will tell you, they advertise themselves as they love humanity better than conservatives. They love the homeless people. They love the earth and nature and the animals and all these kind of things. They love human rights. But the thing is like, and I'm not defending, Republican conservatism by any means. The thing is when you look at the leftist culture, it's like they get everything wrong. They have some of the right ideas very abstractly. Yeah, care for the earth, care for animals, care for people, but they get everything wrong. And one of them is what it is to be made in the image of Yah. And we have seen, of course, it get completely derailed over the last 10 years, as if it wasn't going that way for the last 150 years. And, one of those is feminism. For those of you who know me, I am completely against feminism. I'll be very outspoken about it. I don't want to offend a lot of people, but this is one of the areas where I'm like, I'm sorry, like feminists have completely derailed what it is to be created in the image of Yah. in the image of Eve, and the first Eve, the second Eve, whatever, what have you. Now, this was an article that was shared recently in our group by John Q. He dropped this in here, and it's actually written. It was put out by Tyler Durden. Tyler Durden of Zero Hedge didn't write it. I think he was sharing it by a Molly Englehart via the Epoch Times, and he reposted this. This was a phenomenal article, and it's the convenience culture crisis: how second wave feminism helped make America sick. Now, this is fascinating, right? So this idea that women are, they're just trying to, somehow the patriarchy has suppressed them into their womanly roles, and that they have to rebel against these, break free. And in doing so, this woman who used to be very much a feminist, and now she has gone conservative, she's realized how wrong she had it. So here's a few key points here. There is a version of my life that could have existed, and for a long time it looked like the path I was on. I was a successful restaurateur, financially independent, living a neat and polished life that most people would label as accomplishment. I could have stayed that woman. A single woman with a couple of well-trained pets, a beautiful home, and a gated golf course community, and a thriving business. No obligations, no interruptions, and no sticky hands tugging my shirt while I try to answer an email. This is something that that a lot of the women today, the TikTokers and stuff, I see all these videos where they just go on and on about how they have life better because they have no children, nothing, they're free to do whatever they want, and they do the most boring material things, like whatever. But she's saying here, like she's setting this up like she thought she had it so good. And now she realizes she has this gnosis as a mother, that she has it way better. And it's something that these feminist women will never understand. They don't have that gnosis. You can't force them to understand this. They have to be willing to walk through the door. Society would have applauded that version of me and called it freedom. And she's saying that it's not freedom at all. The irony is that during that time, I was feeding thousands of people from scratch food. I knew the value of real ingredients and traditional cooking techniques. You see what I'm saying? There are things that, like, I would say the liberal culture has pushed through a lot of the kind of organic foods. You go to, city centers and places like that, you find that kind of dining. Yet I did not fully understand the deeper meaning of nourishment. She's speaking spiritually here, not just physically. Well, actually, I jumped ahead of the next sentence. Not just physical nourishment, but the cultural and generational work that happens when families cook and eat together. This is one of the things, the high points of conservative values is the family, the community. Specifically, not just a hybrid community of just anybody who just, claims to, be whatever they are molded in, whatever image they're molded in, but a family unit of a father, mother, and their children. And she says here, the work that forms identity. Today, my life looks very different. I have 4 children and a farm, and nothing about our life is quiet or controlled. Just yesterday, my 10-year-old stood next to me making jam from blueberries and blackberries, and then we bottled homemade barbecue sauce. The younger kids ran barefoot around us. Already you could see like the single feminist women just like screaming, having a meltdown at the thought of, these barefoot children running around, circles around them and ending their piece. And, I gotta wake up and, just whatever, sleep in, because I don't want to have to wake up and tend to children. They make videos about this. The leaving laughter, questions, and a trail of crumbs behind, right? You parents, you all know what I'm talking about, right? You just clean that up and you turn around and there's like a puddle and there's dirty plates and crumbs. You're like, oh my goodness. And you clean that up and then you look around and over here and it happened all over again. That's what she's describing. It was chaotic, imperfect, and slow. Yet in the middle of the noise, I could feel something ancient, something right. Moments like that used to be normal. Today, they are the exception. And that realization has been stirring something in me. It raises a difficult question that many people avoid because the answer is uncomfortable. What changed? How did feeding our families become optional? inconvenience, or even burdensome? How did basic human skills become rare? The more I look back, the more I land on a conclusion that people do not like to talk about. Women leaving the home during the era of second wave feminism, this would be like talking about the 1970s and beyond, may be one of the primary root causes of America's health crisis. And not only our health crisis, but a long list of problems I will not unravel in this article. Any number of physicalities and things that, came to be, but also broken homes, people being raised with a single parent. And of course, all that leads into spiritual issues as well. And of course, it's circular. Before anyone gets upset, let me be clear. First wave feminism was necessary. I actually don't agree with that, but whatever. She's free to her opinion. The right to vote, to own property, to have legal protection, and to make choices about our lives was essential. That was justice. Now, actually, I do actually agree with some of those. I do think that, there are examples in the Torah where, women do own property and they need to have a voice over that. But to say that feminism created that, I actually don't agree with that at all. Second wave feminism was different. It did actually. First wave feminism was the first major kink or crack in families, and it was actually the liberals that were pushing it. It wasn't the conservatives of the day. Second wave feminism was different. It did not simply push for equal opportunity. It rewired the meaning of womanhood itself. Women were told that motherhood was optional, that homemaking was oppressive, and that feeding and caring for a family was beneath their potential. So you can see right here where all these women are being lifted out of what it was. They're being lied to about what it is to be created in the image of God. The message was that value existed outside the home, not within it. And that's that right there. Like that should be in bold. I didn't make any of this bold. This was the original article. I mean, that's the tragic part right there. The value existed outside the home, not within it. This is why children are handed over to public schools, be raised by the government, right? It like the family has lost its meaning in raising children. We now hand it over to professionals, to the therapists, psychologists, the teachers, the whatever, government propaganda. And then came the promise that every little girl in my generation absorbed, whether anyone said it out loud or not. You can have it all. She could have just said the girl boss. I often talk about the many little lies we are required to accept in order to function in modern life. But this particular lie is not little. It is enormous. We not only tell it to ourselves, we enforce it on other women. We applaud exhaustion and call it achievement. We normalize overwhelm and call it balance. We pretend the cost is invisible. The truth is that the consequences are not just carried by women trying to be all things to all people. The consequence. So one of the ways you could phrase that there is that, they would feminists deem to mean women who are, just trying to be the matriarch of their home, because that is not being all things to all people, right? You should be able to be, the girl boss and do all these different things. And you're not going to find meaning amongst your husband and your children at all. Or if you do, it's not good enough. The consequences have spread across society. We are under-nurtured and underfed, not only emotionally, but physically. A generation is growing up without real food, without family rhythm, and without the biological and cultural memory that cooking and eating together used to provide. And I've said it many times before, this is in large part why the LGBTQ movement is growing. And all of a sudden, there's all these people who are gay who never would have been all through history. They're like making people, into this. And I have stated that men get a lot of flack. There's just terrible men out there. And the tables are turning now. And people are realizing this. And a lot of these girls who they have a sex change, or they become, they go down the lesbian route. The truth is that it's not because of some attraction to the opposite sex or because they want to become men. They're actually afraid of becoming woman. That they don't actually have a woman in their life to guide them into motherhood, to show them this is the mysteries of womanhood. These are the rights of womanhood. And one of them is giving birth. I mean, that is one of the mysteries and the rights of being a woman, and they're all being scared off from this. So it's easier to completely circumnavigate, avoid it, and become something else, a completely different fuzzy creation. At the very same time, women were being told their value was outside the home. Industrial food companies were searching for the next market. After World War II, food manufacturing infrastructure was already in place for wartime rations. When the war ended, corporations needed somewhere to send these products. Working women were the perfect solution. Convenience food was framed as freedom. Formula was sold as science. Actually, women were shamed into breastfeeding. I mean, my mom tells me the story, being a pastor's wife, that she would go to the opposite end of a house, even upstairs to the back room, to breastfeed me. Yes, I was a breastfed baby. She would do that because she would be judged by the other women for doing something really icky and gross and disgusting. Like, these women were actually convinced that their own bodies should not be used to raise these babies. It's amazing what a woman's body is designed to do, right? They were denying their very biology because they were so convinced, they'd been lied to, that babies should be receiving formula. That is the true scientific, and that's what God wants, right? Frozen dinners were marketed as progress. You guys all remember that? I remember the microwave dinners. They actually had all these like cookbooks on how to microwave your food. Cooking was recast as outdated, unnecessary, or even foolish for any woman who wanted to be taken seriously. Somewhere in a conference room, someone figured out the psychology. If women could be convinced that preparing food for their families was a waste of potential, possessed food would become the new norm. Or I'm sorry, processed food. I mean, possessed too. I probably actually was intended to be read that way, but I probably read that correctly. And here we stand 2 generations later, staring at the consequences. Childhood chronic illness is now expected. Allergies and autoimmune disorders have exploded. We could say the backs for that too. People do not know how to cook simple meals. Children do not know where food comes from. And our dependence on corporations to feed us has become so normalized that most people don't even recognize it as dependency. We did not just lose nutrition. We lost connection, ritual, rhythm, identity, and agency. And what this woman is talking about here goes into like all the things we talk about as truthers, like even in like stolen history and Antiquitech, and all. This is like Millennial Kingdom talk, right? After the Millennial Kingdom, what did they do in the Little Season? They dammed everything up, just like they were doing with the Yitzhak. I do not say any of this from a place of perfection. I am still the main financial provider for my family. Many of our meals come from the farm restaurant rather than my home kitchen. We rarely sit down at the same time to eat. I am still unwinding my own conditioning. But even in the imperfection, I know the solution is not to shame women or to rewind history. The solution is to recognize what was lost and restore what matters. Even small steps matter. Grow something. Cook one real meal a week. Let children stir the pot, even if the mess slows everything down. Choose food from a person instead of a factory. Sit down together, even if it is only once in a while. Well, obviously, yeah, I guess if it's once in a while, fine. But no, let's try to do this daily, guys, as a family. Just like try to eat my family, we have 3 meals together. Because feeding the people we love has never been insignificant. It has always been one of the most important responsibilities of a family, a culture, and a society. Perhaps the newest form of liberation is not escaping the work of the home, but reclaiming its meaning. And to that, I fully agree, even if I do part a little bit of ways with her on some of her understanding of the original feminist of the 1890s and 1900-ish. All right, continuing with chapter 27. How are we doing on time? I think we're going to maybe make it through tonight. And when Yitzhak was old and his eyes dim that he could not see, he called his eldest son, Esau, and said to him, "My son." And he replied, "I am here." And then he said, See now, I am old, and I know not the day of my death. So now take up your spear, quiver, and bow, and go to the fields and hunt venison for me, and make me tasty food such as I love, and bring it to me, and I will eat it, so that my soul may barak you before I die. But Rabakuha heard the speech of Yitzchak to Esau his son, and that Esau had gone to the field to hunt venison to bring in. Then Rabakuha spoke to Yaakov, her son, and said, I have just heard your father speak to your brother Esau, saying, bring to me venison and make me tasty food, that I may eat it, and I will bless you before I die. So now, my son, listen to my voice to do what I shall order you. Go to the flock and select for me 2 good kids of the goats, and I will make tasty food for your father, such as he loves. And you shall carry it to your father when he will eat, and because of it he will bless you before his death. But Yaakov said to Rabakuha, his mother, but my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. When my father feels me, I shall be in his eyes like a swindler, and shall bring a curse on myself and not a barakah. His mother, however, now he's conflicted here, right? Because he's got his daddy saying one thing, his mom saying another. He really wants to honor his father, but you can see here that he clearly gets his counsel from his mother. They spent a lot of time together in the kitchen. And his mother, however, said to him, let any curse for you come on me, my son. Only you go and do as I tell you. She is actually, I believe, invoking here not only Eve, but actually, we'll see in other texts, if we get to it tonight, Mother Earth. Saying that the earth was cursed through the transgression of Adam and Eve, and let it be on me. Let me be, cursed. He consequently went and did it and brought to his mother, and she made for him tasty food such as his father loved. Then Rabakuha took some of the clothes of her son Esau, which were in the house with her, and put them on her younger son Yaakov, and put the skins of the kids of the goat on his hands and the smooth part of his neck. How hairy do you think this guy was? I mean, I've seen a lot of hairy people in my life. Usually, like the illustrations, like even on the cover of this video, I showed like from the illustrated Bible. It shows them, like I imagine like in the 70s, you could put it on like some gone to the disco and unbutton his shirt and the hair would have come out. The kind of hair that a woman could run her fingers along his chest through the hair, but like to put goat skins, and his dad is basically blind, which is, of course, not just physical here. There's a spiritual connection to his blindness, which is amazing for someone who's so close, who is the son of Abraham and he worships Yah. But it's like you feel like a goat skin and go, yeah, that's my boy Esau. It's like, when was the last time you ever felt someone hairy? You ever pet a goat and go, yeah, that's a guy I know. I mean, this guy has all the markings of a wild man, as far as I'm concerned. Then she gave the dainties and the bread which she had made into the hand of her younger son Yaakov. And he went to his father and said to him, Father. And he replied, I am here. Who are you? Then Yaakov answered, I am your eldest son, Esau. I have done as you asked me. Rise now, turn and eat of my venison, so that your soul may barak me. Yitzchak, however, asked his son, how is it you have been so quick in meeting with it, my son? So he replied, because your Yahuwah, the ever-living Allahia, brought it before me. Then Yitzchak said to Yaakov, come near me, my son, and I will feel if you are really my son, Esau, or no. So Yaakov approached to Yitzchak, his father, and he felt him and said, the voice is the voice of Yaakov, but the hands are the hands of Esau. Therefore he did not detect him, because his hands were like the hands of his brother Esau, like the fur of a goat. Hairy, and he was thankful. Yet he asked, are you really my son Esau? And he replied, I am. So now he's lying, he's deceiving. I've seen people, again, I would be really interesting that if somebody out there really has a explanation to all this that explains that Yitzchak did absolutely no wrong. Maybe he did no wrong. It's hard for me to see that. And this is the moral kind of paradox that's happening here, where this is falling into the will of Yahuwah. He despises Esau. He doesn't want him to get the inheritance, and he's using the situation. I've seen people try to explain away how Yaakov fits the mythological trickster in this. Of course, the trickster, like the coyote from Native American tradition, but the trickster goes into all different cultures. I'm not going to do a study on that side, but he, as far as I'm concerned, he seems to be fitting. I've looked at this 100 different ways, and he seems to me to fit the trickster kind of personality or the prototype. Anyways, then he said, bring it to me and I will eat of the venison of my son so that my soul may barak you. He consequently presented it to him and he ate, and he brought wine to him and he drank. Then Yitzchak, his father, said, come close now, my son, and give me drink. So he approached and gave him a drink, and he smelled the smell of his clothes, and he was satisfied and said, yes, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field which Yahweh has gifted. So may Elohim give to you the dew from the skies and the fatness of the earth, and increase in possession. Nations shall serve you and bow down to you. Yes, a multitude of mighty peoples with you, brothers also, shall pay tribute to you. My son, if any curses you, he shall be cursed. And if any barak you, he shall be baruch. When it happened, the Yitzchak had completed the barak of Yaakov, and Yaakov had gone away from the presence of Yitzchak, his father, that Esau, his brother, came with his venison. And he also made dainties and brought them to his father and said to his father, arise, my father, and eat of the venison of your son, so that your soul may barak me. Yitzchak, his father, however, asked of him, who are you? It's probably more of like, wait, who are you? Like, I'm trying to, how is it that, the episode of Seinfeld, this pretzel is making me thirsty, and they all like debating how they should say it. I feel like that's one of those lines that, who are you? It's more like he's terrified. It's more like a terrified, like, oh my goodness, please don't be Esau. This like, who was the person that just came into this tent? And he replied, I'm your firstborn son, Esau. Then Yitzchak was terrified with a very great terror and asked, who then is he who has hunted venison and brought it to me? And I have eaten of all before you came, and I have knelt and given gifts to him. Yes, and he must be Baruch. When Esau heard the speech of his father, then he cried with a very great and bitter cry and said to his father, bless me, also me, my father. But he replied, your brother has come with deception and stolen your barak. And he answered, now again, like, keep in mind here that Yitzchak knows the prophecy that was given at the time of the twins' birth, that the older would serve the younger. And what you have to wonder, like, what's going on in Yitzchak's mind, that in a way that he is being defiant against this too. I almost have to wonder, like, we weren't there for all the communication between Rivka and Yitzchak. I mean, clearly they were both grieved by Esau's wives. They couldn't stand his wives. They didn't like his family. They've had many conversations about this, and for whatever reason, Yitzchak's just like, I know about all that, but maybe it was just like a cultural thing. Like, he couldn't get past it. Like, he's got to give it to the oldest son. Maybe he just felt trapped. We don't really know. But I can only imagine that Yahweh, he's like, look, how many ways do I have to tell you about this? Maybe he pushed this situation through because it was like a last minute ordeal. Like, if this didn't happen now, then indeed Esau would get the blessing. And Yahweh is like, look, I said I was going to make a people out of your descendants, but I don't want it to be him. Maybe that's what's happened. I don't know. Yitzchak replied and said to Esau, since I have made him your Adon and have given all his brothers to him for servants, and with increase in possession I have endowed him, where now, my son, is there anything I can do? But Esau said to his father, is there then only one Barakaha? Bless me also, my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Then Yitzchak, his father, answered and said to him, yes, in the most fertile land shall be your dwelling, and with the dew from the skies above, and you shall live by your sword, and shall serve your brother. Yet when you stretch forth, you shall break his yoke from off your neck. The idea here is that when, And I think that the Aramaic Targum gives this idea that when the children of Yitzhak break from the Torah, when they break from the law, that is when the shackles are broken off Esau, and Edom is able to come in and take them over. And we see that with the Maccabees. But Esau hated Yaakov from the barakah with which his father had gifted him. And Esau said in his heart, the day approaches for the mourning of my father, when I shall kill my brother. I guess that's something Cain didn't wait around for, right? Maybe Esau has a little bit of wisdom in this. A lot of, people will, maybe it's not murder, but they'll like say, wait to divorce their spouse till after their mommy or daddy is dead, right? Because they don't want them to know that about them, right? What's really in their heart. And after, I've seen this happen a lot, right? After the mommy or daddy dies and they divorce their spouse. So maybe it's something a little bit similar to that, the murder on the heart. But the words of her elder son, Esau, were reported to Rabakuha. So she sinned and called her younger son, Yaakov, and said to him, no, so he was probably going around in the taverns talking to people. Now, Esau, your brother, intends to kill you. Consequently, my son, listen to my voice and arise and go away to Laban, my brother, at Haran, and stay with him for some time until the anger of your brother against you has passed, and he forgets what you have done to him. I will send and fetch you from there. Why should I be deprived of both of you in one day? Then Rabakuha said to Yitzhak, I hate my life in the presence of these half-girls. If Yaakov should take a woman from among these half-girls, such girls as they are in this country, why should I live? Now you're gonna have to wait till the next 2 weeks, but I think that an eye for an eye principle, recompense, that there is this universal law that call it karma if you want, but what you do, what you send out comes back to you like a return of energy. And this is what happened to Yaakov. Now, again, there's a lot of different understandings of what really went on here, but Yitzhak, of course, there's a spiritual blindness to him. Yaakov is also going to have a spiritual blindness that comes over him, and it will eventually wear off with Laban over the 20-21 years, but it's going to take some time. I kind of think that situation happens because of this. You reap what you sow. This is what it says in the Jonathan Targum. And it was when Yitzhak was old and his eyes were darkened from seeing, because when his father was binding him, he had seen the throne of glory. And from that time, his eyes had begun to darken. It's kind of interesting. That he called Esau his elder son on the 14th of Nisan. Guys, what's the 14th of Nisan? You newbies to the Torah may not know because we haven't gone there yet, but most people probably know. It's Passover, right? So they're keeping the Passover before Mount Sinai. And he said to him, my son, behold, this night they on high praise Yahweh of the world, and the treasures of the dew are opened in it. And he said, behold, I am. And he said, behold, now I am old. I know that not the day of my death, but now take thy weapons, thy quiver and thy bow, and go forth into the field and take me venison and make me food such as I love, and bring to me, and I will eat, that my soul may bless thee ere I die. And Rivkah heard by the Ruach HaKodesh as Yitzhak spoke with Esau his son. I love that line because you see the Ruach HaKodesh, Hakamaha, wisdom, our mother, she's kind of meddling in the situation. And in fact, in the Targum, whenever they talk about the Ruach HaKodesh or the Bath Kol, it's kind of a middler, someone who's coming in and working on relationships and getting. It will happen later. We're going to get to it later when it comes to Yehuda, with Tamar, and the Ruach HaKodesh comes in again and meddles and has to kind of fix this situation. And Rivkah spake to Yaakov, her son, saying, behold, this night those on high praise Yahweh of the world, and the treasures of the dew are opened in it. Let's jump in down here. And it says, and Rivkah took the pleasant vestments of Esau, her elder son, which had formerly been Adam's. So there you go, right there. We already saw in Jasher where Esau stole the vestments from Nimrod, and of course that came from Ham stealing it from Noah, and so on and so forth. but which that day Esau had not worn, but they remained with her in the house. And with them she dressed Yaakov, her younger son. And the skins of the kids she laid upon his hands and smooth parts of his neck. And the food and the bread she had made, she set in the hands of Yaakov, her son. This is what we read in verse 28. This is, I believe, Yitzchak talking here. He says, therefore the word of Yahweh give thee of the good dews which descend from the heaven. So what are these good dews that descend from heaven? This is really interesting that he had intended this blessing on Esau, who could have cared less about the dews from heaven. I'll show you what the dew of heaven is. He could have cared less, nor did he do anything in his life to ever receive the dew of heaven. Yitzchak had done plenty. So it's just so interesting, again, that I said Yitzchak, Yaakov had done plenty. Sorry for confusing their names so much tonight. It just like rolls off my tongue. I meant to say Yitzchak, I say Yaakov, or vice versa. So anyways, it says that Esau is going out to hunt. It says the word of Yahweh had impeded him from taking clean venison. So now we see Yahweh personally involved in this. We saw the Ruach HaKodesh is intervening, Yahweh is intervening, but he found a certain dog and killed it and made food for him and brought it to his father. So Esau could have, now he's proud and he clearly doesn't really love his father. Really, he just wants the blessing, right? He's like the son in the parable that just like give me the inheritance. Just give me the inheritance. I'm leaving, right? He could have gone back to his father and been like, I don't know what happened. I'm so sorry. I could not kill an animal for the life of me. But he's like, no, I'm going to kill a dog. I'm going to feed him this nasty, unclean food. I'm going to lie about it. And Yitzchak was moved with great agitation when he heard the voice of Esau. But not only the voice of Esau, and the smell of his food rose in his nostrils as the smell of the burning of Gehenna. That should be, I guess, a tip off there, a red flag. Yet still, he was weeping over his son. This is what it says in 3rd Baruch about the dew of heaven. Quick context: Baruch is traveling through the 7 heavens, and when I had learned all these things from the archangel, he took me and led me into a 4th heaven. So he's going above paradise. And I saw a monotonous plain, and in the middle of it, a pool of water. And there were in it multitudes of birds of all kinds, but not like those here on earth. But I saw a crane as great as great oxen, and all the birds were great beyond those in the world. And he also, it's interesting that he does mention a crane here, and of course, cranes and as well as herons were perceived by the ancients as having a direct, above other birds, having a direct correlation with the spiritual realm. This is one of the reasons why we see in the 1800s there was a big uptick of illustrations of these cranes carrying babies. Right? It's people laugh at that, like, oh, they couldn't explain sex, but there's esoterically there was probably something happening there with the souls. This big uptick of people being born. And these, preconceived souls coming into the world. In the section before this, he also talks about the dew of heaven, and he talks about how the phoenix drinks it up. And I asked the angel, what is the plain and what the pool and what the multitudes of birds around? And the angel said, listen, Baruch, the plain which contains in it the pool and other wonders is the place where the souls of the righteous come. What does that mean? Is he talking about the sea of souls like we see, or is he talking about, he seems to be talking about like a voluntary congregation. What I've never really made sense with is he talking about dead souls, or is he talking about living souls on this earth? The way I see this is that the things we are doing on this earth, like right now, so some of us, even though we're online, we are congregating together. We are souls coming forward, souls of the righteous coming forward. And so there's this scene being enacted in heaven, like as above, so below, on earth as it is in heaven. What we are doing on the earth reflects in the heaven, and then it's circular. What happens in the heaven comes back to us on the earth, right? That's of course, recompense, Torah. And so anyways, he says, the plain which contains it the pool and other wonders is a place where the souls of the righteous come, when they hold converse, living together in choirs. But the water is that which the clouds receive and rain upon the earth, and the fruits increase. And I said again to the angel of Yahweh, but what are these birds? And he said to me, they are those which continually sing praise to Yahweh. And I said, Adonai, and how do men say that the water which descends in rain is from the sea? Isn't that kind of interesting? Because, he's talking about the whole process there. A little science for you. And the angel said, the water which descends in rain, this is from the sea. He's saying, yeah, that's how it works. But there's the waters and from the waters upon earth. But that which stimulates the fruits is only from the latter source. Know therefore henceforth that sorry for stumbling, that from this source is what is called the dew of heaven. There it is right there. So this is what Yitzhak was blessing Yaakov with. He thought he was blessing Esau. And of course, with Rivka said, on this night is when the dew of heaven, the heavens open up, 14th of Nisan. This is when you get blessed with the dew of heaven. This is what he was being blessed with. It is a spiritual type of dew. And this is why I said Esau, he wasn't even interested in that. Like he wanted it, but he wouldn't have done anything to maintain it. All right. This is a wonderful section, but we are running. You see how long this is. I'm not going to make it. That's another 30 minutes worth right there. That comes from Legends of the Jews. It's a wonderful story on all of it. It actually talks about how. Oh, I will read you this one part because this is a very Jewish depiction of Satan here. That will cause heads to spin in the Baptist Church, where Satan is specifically working for Yahweh. Man, I can't find it now. Well, for lack of time, I'll just explain it to you. I'd rather read it to you so you can see it for yourself. All right. Well, basically what happened is that as Esau is going around hunting for this venison, every single time he captures one, he for whatever reason he didn't kill it right away, but he captures it like with his bare hands or whatever, and he ties it up, and he goes off. And Satan comes along, and he's working. Yahweh personally sends Satan out there to untie it and release it. And Esau can't figure this out. So it's really interesting to see that in this passage right here, Legends of the Jews, which is kind of a Reader's Digest of greater Jewish literature. It is connecting Satan as working ultimately for Yahweh, and that's one of that's a kind of a point of view that is within Little Season eschatology, which wouldn't even be dreamed about. But again, as the accuser, right? Somebody needs to be there to accuse. I don't know. It's interesting. That's something I haven't really explored here before. I need to do a study on. All right, this is the end of it right here. We're going to end it. So we're going to end on time. Chapter 28. Of course, we're only ending on time because I skipped like 10 pages right there of reading material, which was all good. And I skimmed through Edom so quickly. Excuse me. Consequently, Yitzhak called for Yaakov and baraked him and commanded him not to take a woman from the girls of Canaan. Arise, go to Padan Aram or Fadanuha Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take yourself a woman from there, from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. Now, I'm going to show you, hopefully next week, that this was set up from the very beginning. So Rivka had always intended for him to go take Rachel, not Leah, and that Esau was always intended to take Leah. He wasn't interested in that either. So this is another reason why you could see Rivka's agitation. Like, I have this woman set up for my son. He won't take her, and he's going and taking these other women that are just causing us pain. And Al Shadayah, he will barak you and make you fruitful and increase, and may you become an assembly of nations, and may he give the Barakaha of Abraham to you and your seed with you, to inherit the land of your strangerhood, which Elohim gave to Abraham. Seems to have a better tone with his son now, doesn't he? Thus Yitzchak sent off Yaakov, and he traveled to Padan Aram to Laban, the son of Bethuel, the Aramea, the brother of Rabakuha, the mother of Yaakov, and Esau. But when Esau knew that Yitzchak had blessed Yaakov and sent him to Padan Aram to take himself a woman from there to comfort him, and had ordered him, saying, take not a woman from the girls of the Canaanites, and that Yaakov had listened to the voice of his father and mother, and had gone to Padan Aram, then Esau perceived that the girls of Canaan were displeasing in the eyes of Yitzchak his father. To Esau went to, you have to think that they were, he knew that they were, you have to feel like he knew they were displeasing to his parents before. It was a fact that I think he hated that his brother was constantly obedient, and doing all the things that they told him to do. And that is probably what really irked him. So Esau went to Yashameal and took, I'm just going to read this in the English here. He went to Ishmael, and his uncle, and took unto the wives which he had, I still can't read in the English, Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebajoth, to be his wife. And it says in the Paleo here, took Machalath, the daughter of Yasha, this would be Ishmael, the son of Abraham, the sister of Nebajoth, besides his other women, as a woman to himself. So that finishes it there. Thank you for sitting through this session with me. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I'm sorry I don't have really a solution for you. I mean, I'm reading this account, and it is indeed a mystery to me why it worked out that way. But that's one of the things I love about the Bible. The Bible is not politically correct. It does not pretend to be. I don't want to make it politically correct. I don't want to try to transform it into some sort of modern, again, evangelical thinking. The tension here is that this is how, at the end of the day, this is how Yahweh intended to work through this situation. So good night, everybody. Love you guys. Please don't forget about Pamela and Rebecca. Keep in mind that this very document that we read through tonight came from their hands, and we need to support them. We really do. I mean, my family's struggling as is, but we need to support them. That is a task given to us by Yahweh. Now, I know that none of you out there volunteered for that, right? You got your own people to take care of, but I have in this community lifted them up and asked that, as a community, these are two individuals who are blessing us with this very document that I read through tonight. So let's please bless them back. Good night, everybody. Love you guys. Let's do this.
Hey guys, Polyhard here, and I just want to let you know you have the opportunity to be awesome. How can you be awesome, you ask? Well, by supporting our work in the ministry, by going to the links below here and saying, you know what, I would like to see the entire Paleo Hebrew Bible come out, and I want to see all these other Bibles and books and works that Noel's doing and have them edited, and we're doing that by supporting Pam and Rebecca and also the rest of everybody else. So please go below and pray. Say, you know what should I do? Should I give $1? Should I give nothing? Should I just pray harder? Should I give $5,000? Whatever he directs you to do, let's do that. Have a good day. Bye.